Sur audiovisuel concept.
Oui, non, mais Catherine, elle n'a pas le truc. Il doit le mettre le micro de Igmar. Oh, we have 5? Oh.
Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, hello and welcome. I hope you are all keeping well. Thank you for joining the FEI Online Sports Forum 2021. It's 12 noon CEST, and before we start, I'd like to go through some important points that will help you make the most of the discussions. Each registered participant has received 2 links. One is valid all day today, and the second one valid all day tomorrow. Use the Zoom software or Google Chrome and connect through a fast and reliable internet connection. We encourage you to take part in the discussion throughout the day. To do so during the Q&A sessions, click the hand icon to let us know you'd like to speak. Once you have the floor, you can activate your camera and your microphone and start speaking. If you have any technical difficulty, please use one of the 3 phone numbers or the email that are at your disposal. You'll find them in the guidelines that were sent to you. Finally, I'd like to highlight that all sanitary protocols are in place and will be followed throughout this sports forum. That being said, I thank you for your patience and now hand over the floor to the FEI Secretary General, Mrs. Sabrina Ibanez.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear friends, welcome to the FEI's 10th Sports Forum. Today we have several sessions that will take place, and this will continue tomorrow as well. And to kick off this incredible sports forum, I'm very happy to give the hand over to our president, Mr. Ingmar de Vos. Ingmar, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Sabrina, and welcome to all the participants and viewers for the FEI Online Sports Forum 2021. Several months ago, we had hoped this sports forum could be held in person, and we delayed it as much as possible without impacting our governance and rules revision processes, in the small chance that an in-person meeting would eventuate. But it was not to be. Having said that, we are all here together now, and this sports forum, like the many that have preceded it, will be an occasion to share, to debate, and to drive our sport forward with a collective and proactive spirit of interaction and communication. I don't need to tell anyone how hard these past 12, 18 months have been for the community. We have weathered many storms, from COVID-19 and the chaos that was unleashed on our calendar to the recent EHV1 outbreak in Europe. But as I always say, optimism is a moral duty. And with 100 years under our belt, we have everything it takes to overcome adversity. So yes, it has been tough. And yes, we have confronted more challenges than we would have liked. But we have found solutions. We have gone above and beyond our basic needs. And finally, it looks like competitions are picking up again. 2 weeks ago, we held World Championships in endurance under the new FEI rules. In 7 weeks, we have the Olympic Games, followed by the Paralympic Games, World and European Championships, the Longines FEI Nations Cup final, and the list goes on. Life does not stop. If anything, we are working harder than ever to make sure we have our place in the international sporting arena. We have all had to dig deep, and we have learned so much about what is important to our community, what we stand for, and especially what we need to defend. Our sport is unique, and we must never take our achievements and our successes for granted. Since 2012, our community has congregated annually to address key issues at the Sports Forum. And this year again, we will do that again. Our discussions have contributed to crucial advancements in our sport, and we have grown closer as a community through our persistent exchange of ideas and our collective drive to better our sport and raise the profile of equestrian. We have some interesting discussions ahead, and I'm looking forward to hearing your views on the topics we have outlined for this edition, and especially on the topic of grooms. So we might be online, but the sentiment and the passion is by no means diffused. We are here to exchange and to build our path forward. Thank you once again for your passion, for your resilience, and your commitment to equestrian sport. We are not celebrating 100 years of FEI for nothing. Let's make this sports forum count, and let's mark this occasion as a turning point for our sport and our community. And of course, a big thank to our Secretary General, Sabrina Ibanez, for leading the Sports Forum agenda, and to all the team that have done a wonderful job in providing such a great settings to have these discussions. It has been sometimes frustrating, often hard, always challenging and intense, but how enriching it has been. Also, many thanks to all the panelists that have accepted our invitation. We are already well advanced in the new year, Nonetheless, I wanted to wish you and your loved ones all the best for 2021. Enjoy life to the fullest and never give up on your craziest projects while caring for others and for our environment. I look forward to hearing from you, and I wish you all a very successful and interactive FEI Sports Forum 2021. So thank you very much. And now, Sabrina, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Igmar. I'm happy to report, Igmar, that we have 457 active participants at this sports forum, which is, I think, a big deal. So before we move on to our next session, which is going to be dedicated to an update on the Olympic Games and the Paralympic Games, where we will have Tim Hadaway, our Director of Games Operations, joining us live from England. Göran Ackerström, the Director of our Veterinary Department, joining us from Sweden. We'll also have Catherine Norinder, who is the Director of Olympic Games, and Catherine Bollon, who is the Advisor of Athlete Services and Human Anti-Doping. Before we join them, I'm very pleased to share with all of us today a very lovely video to celebrate our 100-year anniversary.
Birthdays, a time to celebrate, to reflect, to remember the days that shaped our lives. The big moments, and the quiet ones. The journey we have been on, the times we came together to be more than we were alone. Each day, learning from the last. To step into your ultimate arena. Every road is unique, but the commitment, drive, dedication, and love the same. Always remembering where it began, and those who have helped us along the way. It is time to set new goals for the opportunities that lay ahead, and the partnerships that will span a lifetime. 100 years and counting. Time to shape our future together.
Tim, sorry to interrupt. Tim, if you hear me, please unmute yourself. I just requested the unmute.
My apologies there. I'm just going to backtrack. And I did the one thing that we should all have had plenty of practice in doing over the last year, and that is to unmute prior to speaking. So my apologies there. So, hello, good morning, good evening, good afternoon to our friends and colleagues from around the world. We've just seen some amazing images there in that wonderful video from past Olympic Games. And hopefully in just a few weeks' time, we as a sport are going to create a few more amazing memories to come. I'm just going to quickly run through the agenda of what we'll cover on today's 2020 Paralympic and Olympic Games sessions. First of all, I'll give you a general update, particularly on venue preparations and logistics. I'll then hand over to my colleague, Catherine Norinder, who will cover countermeasures relating to COVID-19. And she will then go on to cover some of the sport competition rules, and in particular, those covering substitutions that will be such a key part of the new competition formats. Then on to the climate mitigation measures, given the conditions we expect in Tokyo may well be challenging in terms of heat and humidity, where Joran will cover the equine aspects of this, and Catherine Bollon the human athlete aspects of climate mitigation, before my same two colleagues go on to cover equine and athlete anti-doping matters. And we will wrap up with a question and answer session. So let's first of all kick off by taking a look at the venue that awaits us in Tokyo this year. Now, the venue known for the Olympics as Equestrian Park in an area of Tokyo called Baji-Koen is absolutely spectacular. It's owned by the Japan Racing Association, and it's been totally redeveloped and upgraded in readiness for these Olympic and Paralympic Games. You can see here in the foreground, the stable barns. The top left corner, you will see the training areas, including a cross-country training area and a gallop. And then you will see a sloping roof in the middle of the picture. That's an indoor arena, a large indoor arena. And then beyond that, on the far right top corner, the field of play itself, the 80 by 100 meter field of play ready for competition. Now, for those of you who attended the 2019 Ready Steady Tokyo test event, you will have seen many of these facilities in place already, with venue construction at that stage being well up to date. A couple of changes since then. The final warm-up has been installed, additional spectator seating has been added, and the gallop footing, which many commented on as being perhaps not quite up to the standard expected during the test event, has now been relaid and will provide the perfect preparation, in particular for the eventing horses prior to cross-country. So the venue is set, but I thought, first of all, it might be interesting for you to see the transformation that this venue has gone through. The venue at Baji-Koen, in fact, hosted the Olympic Games, the equestrian events of the Olympic Games in 1964, when Tokyo last hosted. What a great legacy it was for that venue to have been used ever since for competitions, particularly by the National Equestrian Federation of Japan. However, as you can see here, back in 2014, the stables were certainly in need of a little bit of an upgrade, and they've had that. They've been entirely rebuilt, and the large 12 square meter stable boxes are housed in a series of air-conditioned barns. And onto the field of play. As I mentioned, 80 meters by 100 meters. In 2014, on the left there, you can see what that looked like. It had successfully hosted many competitions over the years, including up to Japanese national championship level in jumping and dressage. But now you can see it there, well and truly ready for the Games in 2021. Now, interestingly, the seating is temporary and will be removed post-Games as the Equestrian Park reverts to its legacy mode as a JRA training facility, and hopefully a state-of-the-art competition venue for many equestrian competitions to come in the future. The Equestrian Park will host all jumping and dressage, but the event in cross-country will actually be at the Sea Forest venue in the Tokyo Bay. Set against a spectacular backdrop, again, many of you will have visited this venue in 2019 for the test event. A few changes though. The course, as you may well be aware, has been shortened, and as a result, we have a new start area. A second tent has been put in place for the stables to accommodate the larger number of horses, and additional cooling facilities have been put in place, not only down by the stables, in the warm-up area, but also up, crucially, by the cross-country finish area. And finally, the warm-up area has been extended with a new sand arena. So now on to some key dates. Many of you involved with the organization of taking your horses to Tokyo will already be aware that we're within the 60-day period prior to the Games when horses' movements are somewhat restricted and must be recorded in readiness for entering pre-export quarantine. Each discipline population of horse will enter the pre-export quarantine, the majority of them in Aachen at the same time. And then again, each population of horse from each discipline will fly out to Tokyo on 2 chartered flights, each discipline arriving between 5 and 9 days prior to the first horse inspection. Now, we built in a 24-hour contingency period post-competition to allow for any postponement that may need to take place in the event particularly, for example, if we are subjected to more extreme climatic conditions for any days of competition. And then the first flight for each discipline will depart Tokyo to return to Europe 24 hours after that contingency period has expired. Now, all horses are in fact now traveling via or from Europe direct, except for a very small number who will come from Australia on a scheduled flight from there. As already mentioned, the 60-day period is already underway, and there is also an extensive program of pre-export testing required. Now, all of these details, many of you will have seen already, are captured in a memo produced by Peden Bloodstock, the shipping agents, and available via our website. Please follow all instructions in that memo very carefully, particularly the timelines. Peden are doing what they can to help by sending you reminders. They're in contact, I know, with many of you on a regular basis. As a result of the recent outbreak of equine herpes virus, there's now a requirement to undergo testing, swab testing, immediately prior to entering PEQ. And that testing will also extend to equine influenza. So having followed all of this in advance of pre-export quarantine, the horses will enter for 7 days that quarantine prior to the departure for Tokyo. Now, national federations had the option to arrange their own quarantine hubs, and if they chose to do this, they will already have had those plans in place for some time, and those plans should have been signed off by their local ministry vets. The majority, however, are coming to the organized quarantine hub at Aachen in Germany, conveniently placed only around an hour from the departure airport of Liège in Belgium. Plans are well underway to open that quarantine center, and in fact, Peden Bloodstock will shortly send you, the federations, a COVID mitigation plan so that you can be confident that this will be a safe and secure environment for that final preparation before departing for Tokyo. They will also send you, Peden Bloodstock, a final operational plan regarding that pre-export quarantine period, covering arrangements for arrivals, parking, stabling, and of course, training times and arrangements. That will include some catering options on site. You will be aware that there are some challenges now with departures from UK to Germany as a result of more recently introduced COVID restrictions. And we would assure you that these are being addressed at the very highest level to try and find the appropriate solutions. And Peden Bloodstock are again in regular contact with those of you whom that affects. In addition to the horses, national federations would send in excess of probably of around 300 kilograms per horse of feed and equipment to Tokyo. All of this must be listed prior to departure and packaged up, and the format for that shipping list, packing list, is currently undergoing final revision and will be shared with you very soon. The feed traveling with the horses on those flights must be according to the list that is available in that Peden memo. I think it's Annex G of that memo, and all permitted feeds are on that list. In fact, an updated version of that list will be issued very shortly. However, I must stress that no further feeds can be put forward for inclusion on that list. Now, the time is too late for that. That has all been done over the last 6 to 9 months. Veterinary supplements, and in fact, all veterinary medicines must be packaged separately and listed separately according to Annex D of that Peden memo. Please make sure that that annex is submitted prior to the 18th of June to the vet services manager in Japan, Hiroko Aida, whose contact details you can see just there. Now, the feed and bedding services are being delivered in Tokyo and in fact prior to the Games by the Japan Racing Association Facilities Company in partnership with the hugely experienced Kentucky Equine Research. Now, Kentucky Equine Research, a company known to many of you, are probably already in contact, I know, with most federations. However, a memo will be sent by them probably in the coming days, if not later today, outlining the procedure for establishing your accounts, office hours, ordering options, and the delivery schedule to make sure that the feed and bedding is there and waiting for you when you get to Tokyo. A list of feeds and bedding available for purchase is in Annex G, again, of the Peat and Bloodstock memo I've referred to on a number of occasions this morning. And registering an account with KER will be essential prior to any ordering that you make. Orders will be able to be placed online. You can see the address here. Pre-orders will be accepted from June the 10th. Now, these are welcomed. They're not essential. It will certainly help KER and JRAF's logistics if you do order in advance. And those orders placed will be delivered in bulk to the area of your stables in time for the arrival of your horses. However, equally, you can make orders in person via the feed and bedding office on the venue when you arrive. That will be open from July the 10th. It'll be open daily and deliveries will be made throughout each day on your convenience, as will be the case also for the Paralympic Games. So finally, some important contact information and information regarding where you can get hold of all that is presented today. We have the Tokyo 2020 hub on inside.fei.org, so please visit those pages. Peat and Bloodstock, Martin and Fiona will be there to answer all questions that you may have relating to logistics, pre-export quarantine, and all matters relating to horse transport. And as just mentioned, Kentucky Equine Research for feed and bedding matters. There's even a QR code there so that you can instantly gain access to the WhatsApp group for Tokyo 2020 feed and bedding that KER have already established, and we'll put out all information via that group in due course. So a bit of a whistle-stop tour there. Again, my apologies for failing to unmute at the beginning of the presentation, but thank you for listening. I now have great pleasure in handing over to my colleague, Katrin Noander, Director for Olympic Games, who will start by outlining the COVID-19 countermeasures for the Tokyo 2020 Games. Thank you.
Right, thank you very much, Tim. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Exciting times. 53 days to go to the Tokyo Olympic opening ceremony. So we thought this was a good occasion to give you a good or a quick overview of the countermeasures that are actually in place for the Olympic Games set up by the Japanese government, the Tokyo government, city government, the IOC, the IPC, as well as the organizing committee, to ensure that we have safe and secure games and to limit the risk of contamination during the games. This has all been included in the playbooks that have been released for all the different stakeholders for the Olympic Games. And the link is available on the FEI Olympic webpage or on the IOC webpage website. Version 3 of this playbook is supposed to be released in June. We hope it will be sooner than later because it will contain the final measures that will be applied for the Olympic Games, and depending on the status of the contaminations in Tokyo, these may vary. Either they may be more drastic or released. This definitely will be different and unprecedented circumstances, so we're all navigating a little bit in the vague here. The main measures is, of course, the overall limitation of visitors to Japan, and that only essential and operational accreditations will be delivered, which means that there will be no guests, no accompanying persons for anyone, whether it's the IOC, the NOC, the IF, or the organizing committee. There will be, the decision has been taken to have no foreign spectators, and the attendance of domestic spectators is expected to be on 30th of June, later this month. To continue, there is this concept of bubble to bubble that replaces the quarantine, and that will be registered in your activity list for everybody who's going to visit Tokyo. And this will apply throughout the Olympic Games period, and will limit all visitors to only the accommodation and the competition venues and any venues that has been established as official by the Tokyo Organizing Committee. Then we also have a very important appointment for all the different stakeholder groups, which is the COVID liaison officer. And they will be responsible to ensure that the COVID measures are reporting to the Japanese government. And this, for the FEI delegation, will be Mark Hart, our medical board member representing the medical committee. At any time during the Olympic Games, none of the stakeholders that have actually accredited as foreign will be able to use public transport. So there will be dedicated transport for all the different groups during the full competitions that we have to stick to. There's also a separation of all the different stakeholder groups. And this will mean that the National Olympic Committees with the athletes will be separated from the IF and from the organizing committee at the different venues. And also the transferable accreditation passes have been canceled, which means that we are not able to go and see other sports, or we cannot upgrade our accreditation on venue. Then there has been a big debate on horse owners, and the FEI has made a very, very strong request to the IOC to try to maintain a status quo within the horse owners. However, as you all know, this is an NOC accreditation, and we're still awaiting for confirmation from the IOC exactly what the final status is, and we hope it's going to come this week. To continue on, the COVID testing, of course, is an important part of the whole countermeasures that have been set out for Tokyo. And as been published, 2 tests will be required before any flight departure to Tokyo. There is a number of applications required by smartphone to be downloaded for all visitors to, or all foreign visitors to Tokyo, which include a Google Map location, a health monitoring app, as well as a close contact app. We will be providing more information on all this on our website a bit later on when we know exactly the dates and all the different information. There will be testing every day, which is saliva instead of these nasal things that go up the nose that nobody wants. These will be done daily for the first days, and it's actually an agreement that has been made by Tokyo, which will apply instead of isolation. And then every 4 days as defined protocol for each stakeholder group. The athletes, however, will be tested daily in presence of an official and not the day of the competition. And we're trying to obtain these same requirements also for our officials. We are also looking into, as FEI, to monitor the sports rules to ensure that all competition can be completed and medals awarded, and to provide solution in case of positive cases of essential officials or team athletes during the competition. But again, we will hopefully be able to provide you more information about the flexibility that we'll try to have during the games to address any scenario or any unknown scenario that we can come up with. Again, vaccination is strongly recommended by the IOC and the organizing committee, but it will not be required. The playbook rules will apply in all cases. And these playbook rules also include sanitary principles, which is a close contact that now has been defined as 15 minutes without mask in less than 1 meter distance. And this will all be monitored by the COVID liaison officer and will apply to all the stakeholders throughout the games. So that was all for the countermeasures, which will, as I said, hopefully be updated, and we will receive the information soon. I will just continue on a reminder on the question entry deadlines. This is important for all national federations and all participants that will be attending Tokyo. So on the 21st of June, we have the FEI MER deadlines. This is the certificate of capability that will that all national federations will be able to enter 3 times the athlete horse combination plus 3 reserves, which will mean a maximum of 12 nation. Then on the 5th of July, you have the National Olympic Sport entry, Tokyo Olympic Games entries that will require only 3 per nation per discipline and 1 alternative athlete reserve horse combination. However, as you know, we have been working with the new format that we have the reserve horse actually able to be permuted back and forth into the system. And we have an agreement now with both the IOC and the organizing committee that we will have an electronic tool, which will be called the ELAR, that is the chef de mission of the NOC is actually responsible for this. However, he is able to delegate this to any team leader or chef de mission or chef d'équipe of the respective discipline for the specific sport in order to speed up the whole process. There are 2 possibilities. One is the pre-competition changes. And this is a change within the group of horses and athletes you have actually put in after the nominated entries up the 21st of June, up to 2 hours before the start of the first competition. And this can actually, you can proceed with these pre-competition change up to 2 hours before the start of the first competition. And it's important to note that it's without this medical and veterinary certificate. So these pre-competition changes can actually be held up to the 2 hours before the first team event for dressage, the first day for eventing dressage, and for the jumping individual competition, and the first day of the team qualification for the team event for jumping. So there are 2 possibilities for show jumping, as these are considered as separate competitions. In regard to substitutions, this is once per discipline up to 2 hours before start of competition for team classification. And these will need medical or veterinary approval. And there will be forms in the sports information office to be able to do these substitutions as well as the ELAR system. So for dressage, this means that this substitution can be made between the team qualifier and the team final, the Grand Prix Special. And for eventing, this substitution can happen before the cross country, early in the morning, or before the team jumping, with 20 penalties in eventing. And for jumping, this substitution can actually happen between the team qualifier and the team final. So this was just a reminder on the substitution and the pre-competition changes. And of course, we are available for any questions or anything that may occur for the moment. Okay, so I think I have finished my presentation here, and I will hand over to Catherine Bellon, who will present the Olympic Games for humans.
Thank you, Catherine. This was actually an amazing amount of information, and I commend you for your handle on the COVID-19 risk mitigation. So now we'll talk about something else, something that maybe went a bit in the background with all this COVID-19 happening, but it's still quite important. And let's set the stage. In Tokyo, it's going to be very hot and very humid. So why do we want to talk about climate mitigation? Obviously, we all know this is going to be uncomfortable for horses and humans alike. But actually, it's not only about being uncomfortable. Heat and humidity combined can affect your performance, and in some instances, if not well managed, your health. So this is really important for you. When I say you, I'm going to talk about humans at the moment, meaning those who will work and compete and/or compete at the Games. And my colleague Göran Åkerström will cover the horses in the next presentation. Heat and humidity will affect you, but luckily there are some techniques, proven techniques, with which, if used carefully at the right time, can really help you perform safely at your best. So let's have a look at what self-preparation is about for humans. The key principles is to first train your body to cope with the weather, which most likely will be unfamiliar to it. So make no mistake, if you are used to performing in a hot environment, it doesn't mean you're ready. Heat and humidity combined are a different game. So training your body to get accustomed to the heat well ahead of time is one of the main elements in dealing with a hot and humid climate. What you always also need to do under such a climate is to keep your body cool as much as possible so that the temperature does not rise above uncomfortable or up to dangerous levels. And the next principle is, of course, to deal with heat emergencies should they happen. When working and competing at a sporting event, this preparation takes place, this work takes place in 3 phases. The first one is weeks before travel. It's the preparation itself. And then you have the travel and the first few days on site. And next will be competition time management. During preparation, you're going to take your body through what is called an acclimatization process. What that is well ahead of the time when you will be in a hot and humid climate, you're going to train your body to exercise, to perform in this kind of climate, so that by the time you reach destination, your body is used to it and you can focus on your performance. Another thing you need to do during the preparation phase, because it's not something you can improvise, is to learn about cooling and hydration techniques. They are not complicated, but they need to be learned in advance so that you can then develop your own routine, the one that works for you, and up to a point when it has become second nature to you and you do not have to focus on it anymore by the time you need it. Most of you are very familiar with traveling. So travel can make you arrive fresh or already tired. So you want to make a smooth transition to the local climate. And you also want, once arrived at destination, to have everything you need to handle the climate. So that's about travel. First, you will carefully prepare your trip. Then you will use some techniques to reduce jet lag and travel strain. And then there are some best practices which, once applied on site, will help you transition smoothly to this new environment. During competition time, your hydration and cooling routine are going to be applied. You will need to know the heat stress symptoms so that you can help yourself or possibly others in case of an emergency. That sounds like a lot. It's actually, none of this is rocket science, but it needs to be done well in advance. So please start preparing now. And the few points that have been explained in this presentation are really just general principles, and we have developed them further in 2 main resources. So please have a look and you will find all the details you need for your preparation. First of all, on the FEI website, we have a page where all these points which I have explained are developed. And next, we have developed a series of video called Beat the Heat, covering horses and humans, and with a special episode for Tokyo, for what will be on site, what will be the mitigation measures on site for the heat, what will be the protocols to be applied, and how your heat management measures can be combined with the COVID-19 mitigation measures. Because on site, you will need to wear a mask at all times. You will not be able to access shady areas as easily as in other times, because there will be some restrictions as to the number of people that can be present in the same area. So you need to take these COVID-19 mitigation constraints in your preparation so that they don't surprise you once you arrive on site. Before I hand over to Göran Åkerström, who will cover climate mitigation for horses, let's get a teaser for the Beat the Heat video series.
first in a series of Beat the Heat videos created by the FEI to inform, educate, and provide tips for optimizing your performance in hot and humid climates. So what constitutes a challenging, hot and humid environment? We usually define this as a place where environmental factors significantly increase the body temperature to uncomfortable or even dangerous levels, which in turn can pose a serious threat to horses and humans if not properly managed. Quite simply, your health and the health of your horse is at stake. Heat stress is responsible for dehydration, fatigue, and loss of strength, with dizziness, headaches, cramps, longer reaction times, and poor judgment in humans, and unusual behavior in horses. All this can lead to heat exhaustion and ultimately heat stroke, with potentially lasting effects such as damaged organs or worse. Meet the WBGT index, or Wet Bulb Globe Temperature Index. The index is calculated by a customized device that takes readings of air temperature, humidity, sun and wind all at the same time, combining them into a single value expressed as a Celsius WBGT temperature. On top of the climate value, which we get through the WBGT index, we have to take into account two additional parameters to really gauge the level of stress on the body: exercise intensity level and exercise duration. The higher these two parameters are, the more they add to the existing risks related to the climatic conditions. And all equestrian disciplines are impacted: jumping, dressage, vaulting, and reining, involving intense exercise, moderate duration, and heavily muscled horses; eventing and driving, intense exercise, long duration; endurance, moderate intensity, very long duration. So please stay vigilant and always take extra precautions before, during, and after training and competition. Safe sport in hot and humid climates starts long before the event for horses and humans. Preparation is paramount and includes specific training at home, well thought out packing, best travel practices, on-site acclimatization, risk and emergency protocols, all of which are covered in the FEI Beat the Heat series. And above all, please remember, if you, your horse, or anybody else shows signs of heat distress, react promptly. We must all stay vigilant and attentive to each other as well. So bye for now, ride safely, and make sure you're ready to go beat that heat.
Thank you, Catherine, and greetings to everyone. As Catherine Boulogne pointed out, the Games in Tokyo will be very hot and very humid. Preparations and management are key to preserve equine welfare and to optimize performance. For years, the FEI has produced and presented comprehensive material on preparations and management in challenging climate. From the FEI Sports Forums of 2018 and 2019, you will find presentations and documentation by world-leading experts such as David Marlin, Rachel Murray, Yogi Braisner, and Kira Kyrklund. Before and during the Tokyo test event in 2019, David Marlin also conducted a study on participating horses. In the study report, you will find plenty of very useful information. You just saw our most recent production, the Beat the Heat video series. You should really watch it, and you should have all members of your team to watch it. All this information can be reached through the Tokyo 2020 hub on insidefei.org. Please use this information, and if you not yet have started to prepare your Olympic and Paralympic horses for hot and humid climates yet, it's really time to start doing that now. So on site in Tokyo, there are resources put in place. There's extensive air conditioning in the stables and in all transports. There are cooling facilities in training and competition, and they have been further expanded from the test event. There's also a brilliant organization that provides extensive amounts of ice to the horses. There are also mitigation protocols in place for training and competition. We will have climate monitoring using infrared cameras used by specialist veterinarians and physiologists to support your teams. There are emergency care protocols and facilities, and decision-making processes to support ground juries to take the right decisions when the weather may become very challenging for competition. The climate organization consists of specially trained and very experienced personnel. So we are prepared, and we look forward to meeting you and your horses well prepared. Make sure to train cooling techniques. It's really important. Now I will continue with clean sport for horses. Testing will be extensive, as always, during Olympic Games, and it will be carried out by testing teams in the same manner as we do it at all FEI events. Olympic Games is not FEI events, but the system remains the same when it comes to the testing. Also, the samples will be analyzed in exactly the same way as at all other FEI events. And it will be carried out by the Laboratory of Racing Chemistry in Tokyo. We will also be sending out direct clean sport messaging. It has already started, and this will continue up towards the games. All this information is available in the FEI Tokyo 2020 Clean Sport Guide that you can find on the inside FEI.org. So you need to prepare. You need to educate your riders, crews, team veterinarian, everyone involved with the horses. And you can find very extensive information available on the FEI Clean Sport Hub on how to avoid contamination, how to really have your horses staying clean. And also make sure to screen your horses in advance. We have pre-arrival testing, PAT. This allows you to check if your horses are clean from any prohibited substances ahead of the games. This is an outstanding service, and you should really use it because it covers all the substances on the equine prohibited substance list. So don't miss it. Visit the Tokyo 2020 hub on insidefei.org and find out more. Thank you very much. And now over to Catherine Boulon.
Thank you, Göran. Now we're going to talk about athlete doping control. And I'm not going to give a lot of details because, as Göran has already explained, we have produced a doping control guide which covers both athletes and horses. Everything is there, and you're going to listen to a lot of information today. So I'm just going to direct you to the right places. In Tokyo, it's anti-doping as usual, prohibited list testing. Your athletes should be familiar with that. What changes is that it's the IOC and IPC anti-doping rules that apply. And they have testing jurisdiction over all athletes competing at the game during their respective games periods. This has a number of implications, in particular with processes such as therapeutic use exemptions, whereabouts, and so on. So without going into too much detail, let me just briefly explain about therapeutic use exemptions for the games. For the games, all the athletes registered to compete at the games must obtain a TUE in advance of taking any treatment that contains a substance or uses a method that's on WADA's prohibited list for 2021. This may differ from the new rules, which apply the FEI rules, for example, which since 1 January this year only require athletes falling under the definition of international level athletes to obtain TUEs in advance of taking a substance. So for the game, if athletes are going to take a treatment between now and the end of the games, they need to obtain a TUE in advance. And please, athletes, don't wait until the last moment. You need to start now to make a medication check, a full review with your team doctor, going through all the medication you are taking, prescribed, over the counter, and if you are taking supplements, to review that as well. And then if you find that you need a TUE, you need to apply within the deadlines which are indicated in the resources which we have developed to help you. It's not only the athletes who must prepare ahead of the games. Athlete support personnel also have duties, responsibilities under the anti-doping rules. So don't arrive at the games unprepared and uneducated if this is your case. Please read the FEI Doping and Medication Control Guide. In this guide, we have also made some checklists to help you know exactly what you need to do in order to be ready for the games. We've translated the guide in 8 languages, so that should be easier for you. The guide can be found on the Clean Sport pages of the FEI website. Again, it covers both equine and human athletes. Please make sure to be compliant with the rules. If you have any doubt, please contact us. And remember, equestrian sport, as far as athletes are concerned, is considered as low risk, but this creates a risk of doping simply because people don't take it seriously. So don't arrive at the games uneducated. And to help you arriving at the games educated for the games, WADA, the World Anti-Doping Agency, has created some very nice courses which can be found on their platform ADEL. I've taken those courses personally. I really like them. They are easy to follow. They're entertaining. They contain interesting quizzes which allow you to really remember what you have learned, and they don't take long to take. So there's one course for the Olympic Games, one course for the Paralympic Games. Please really use this unique opportunity to be prepared for the games. And finally, just a little reminder, you have already received information about this. This is not purely anti-doping, but it's connected to anti-doping. Anyone bringing medication in Japan for personal use or team use must make sure to comply with the Japanese law. The Japanese law is very strict, very detailed, and very strictly enforced. So even if you plan to just bring sleeping tablets for the plane, make sure that you have read information about the regulations, and that you apply for a permit in advance if necessary, that you do not bring more than the permitted amounts of medications. We have created a document that is available from the Doping and Medication Control Guide. And from this document, you will have further links. Please go through them. It's quite a lot of information. Contact us if you are unsure. We'll be very happy to answer you or to find out the answer for you. Don't go unprepared. Don't do this at the last minute.
Very much, Catherine, Joran, and Tim. I think this has been a very informative session, and there's a lot of information out there. I just want to tell all you viewers out there that all of this can be re-seen again on the FEI Hub. We will be putting all our presentations on the website as well, so that you can review the presentations that have been provided to you today. So, now, ladies and gentlemen, we will be opening up for questions. As Jérôme told you before we actually started the sports forum, if you do have any questions, please do raise your hand, the virtual hand, obviously, so that we can take your questions. So there will be a little bit of delay. For the moment, we do not have any questions, but we will be patient and see if we get any. Again, there is a little bit of a delay, so I don't want to rush anybody, and please do to hang out with us a bit and see if anybody does ask a question. Okay, I see there is one question that's coming in. Okay, and it comes from Will Connell from the USA. Thanks, thanks, Will. You will be promoted very shortly. And please make sure that you're not on mute, as Tim did, and that your camera is on as well. So just wait a second. Okay, you're on. You're live.
Hi, Sabrina, I hope that was Will. When I put my hand up, it kicked me out the conference and then brought me back in. So I have two questions, if I may. One, can we please have an update on COVID testing on the venue? Because if everyone has to go to the village, that's, as we know, simply not going to work. And the second question is regard to the contingency planning for eventing. Because the day after eventing is obviously when jumping starts. So if we could have confirmation that if there is a contingency needed for eventing, that will be in the morning. And that's important for just planning human flights back. So those are my two questions.
Thank you, Will. So we'll hand over to Catherine to provide the answers to both of these of your questions. Thank you, Will.
Okay, so I'll start with eventing. Yes, there are minor contingency plans in place because, as you know, the rowing, the canoe kayak is actually on the starting there, coming in the next day. So we have done different scenarios for eventing, and we are trying either to put it later in the afternoon if it's a problem, but the heat and humidity, of course, is a serious issue. And then we will have to try to find solutions also when we have a little bit a better idea of the weather forecast there. But it is in the pipeline, and the scenarios are being reviewed with the eventing crew over there. So I'm sorry, I'm not able to provide more exact information, but it will be provided hopefully in the next couple of weeks. And then your first question was in
COVID testing
on the venue.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, Tim, but also I think we got confirmation this morning from the organizing committee in Tokyo that all athletes will be able to be tested on the venue because, as I referred to in the countermeasures, they have to have somebody checking with them. There has to be an official checking with them. And so it will be possible, as well as the delegations with reserve athletes. Is this, Tim, are you able to comment, or? He's just nodding, so I think it's okay. He's happy with the answer, or yes? Yes.
Okay, he's confirming.
His answer.
Very good. Does this answer your question, Will?
Sort of, but you say athletes. What about grooms, P accreditations, training access?
Grooms, P accreditation, P as in reserve athletes, and the delegation, yes, they will be. So there's a different testing for the athletes. As I said, they have to have an official kind of review them, and the others will be they have to do their testing, and it's sent off, but they can actually bring it to the venue for the confirmation results afterwards later.
Can I just add one point? I don't know whether you can hear me at the moment.
Yes, we can.
Can be heard. Excellent. I can be seen now. Fantastic. And I'm off mute. Well, yeah, just to confirm that we've actually, we have heard, I would say at this stage, it's an informal confirmation that all athletes can be tested on venue. I say that because for me, the clarity over AA athletes, I still have not seen formal confirmation of this, but we've had informal indication that AA athletes accommodated off the Olympic Village will be able to test on site. We've got a meeting with Tokyo 2020 this coming Thursday. And in fact, it's on the agenda of that meeting where they will give us a further update, and we will update you in due course as soon as we're able to.
Okay, thank you for that, Tim. So Will, if this satisfies you more or less for now. We'll move on to the next question, and it came in through the chat. It's from Ulf Helgstrand, who would like to know, he says the following: did I understand that a result of a horse who has been in competition and thereafter substituted can count in the team competition? Katrin?
Yeah, so the substitutions have been created, the whole system, to enable a team to be complete and to get a result. So for dressage, for example, if you substitute between the team, the two team competitions, it is for the result, for the team to have a result. Obviously, it will not be able to count for the individual result later. And for eventing, same thing, you have to finalize the competition of the 3 different tests in order to get a final result for the team, but obviously not for the individual, and also for the show jumping. For the team competition, you will have to finish as a team. And you can find all the reference to this in the Olympic regulations that are published on the FEI website.
Thank you very much, Katrin. We have another question from Quentin Simonet from France. We are going to, you're being promoted as we speak. It will take a few seconds. Thank you for your patience, Quentin, and all viewers.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you and we can see you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you for all the details. I have a question regarding the transportation. As Katrin mentioned, this is said that it will not be possible to use public transport. I would understand if it's a recommendation or if it's a ban, especially for the people who have normally not the Olympic transport on their accreditation. I mean the TAPs, horse runners, and then this type of group of person.
Thank you very much, Quentin. Katrin, I believe you can answer this question as well.
Yes, so for the public transportation, this definitely is one of the requirements that has been set up by Tokyo, that we should not mix with local population or whatever, and they have committed to organize the transportations. Now, how it's going to work, I mean, we hope we get more details. It is possible that taxis may be used, or some kind of, but it's a big job, and we hope that we will evolve in this whole discussion. But yes, no public transportation for the 14 first days of everybody who is in Tokyo for foreigner visitors.
And so not possible to walk in the street, and when we have an hotel at 1 kilometer from the showground, not possible to go or cycling or?
No, this has been definitely kind of required by the organizing committee. It's a firm requirement.
Could you, sorry.
No, go on.
Could you guarantee us that it will be organized, or do we have to organize it ourselves? Because from a logistic perspective, we cannot, if we know on site that there is not the full, I would say, logistic ready, that will be really challenging for us to organize ourselves to transport really important group of person. I mean, coach assistant, vets.
The problem, I think that you really need to bring this up with your National Olympic Committee also, because I mean, your delegation, we don't have that much influence in regard to the delegations. So this is something that would probably apply to all sports. So please, I mean, and then come back to us if you need any more assistance in pushing this through for the organizing committee. But I believe that this is a serious issue for everybody.
Thank you. And the very last point is about the 2 vets, because we have only 1 vet on the venue with 3 disciplines. And this is a very challenging point. If we have a problem in the middle of the night, we really need to have a quick logistical answer to bring our vets on site. So that's one of the main points we need to raise. Thank you.
Thank you. That's
okay. Thank you very much, Quentin. So the next question is coming from James Hood. You're being promoted, James. So if you just wait with us for a few seconds, we will soon see you and hear you, hopefully.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. A couple of questions for the group. One, has there been any discussions on changes in access to food servicing in venue for TAPs, Ps, and then what I'm being told is the new horse support personnel accreditation, which is replacing the owner accreditation? And for purchase, that is, certainly previous games, I know that TAPs and Ps were not eligible, but based on the restrictions in Tokyo, restrictions to meal servicing and to access to external, is this an opportunity and has the FEI investigated that? The second is around the COVID mitigation inside the grooms village and the discussions and look around the HVAC system. And is it a contained system inside per unit, similar to the village, or is it a systemic one that covers all of the grooms accommodation? And is that a HEPA filter structure? And what is the mitigation plans for the communal use spaces of showers and bathrooms inside the grooms village itself?
Okay, thank you very much, James. So the first question was regarding food services.
Yeah, but also in regard to the owner and the TP access rights. And I think in what we're trying, as I said in the presentations, this is also, again, the Olympic committees, your Olympic committees and the NOC's kind of responsibility for the delegations. And we have pushed very, very strongly to get the different access rights and to have an understanding. And what I think, and I don't know if it was an email that was received from you, that you had received confirmation about the access rights in regard to the different owners, because we haven't seen it yet and we're still waiting for that officially to be announced. So, and that has an influence on all the meal services, which is, again, it's very frustrating for us also, because this is specifically your National Olympic committees who are involved in all these discussions. And we have just limited access to this information at this stage. So we're trying to actually develop this more and more. In regard to the COVID mitigation in the grooms, I don't know, Tim, if you had more information on that, but I know that Mark Hart has been very much in contact with the organizing committee also in regard to the grooms and how we actually, if we have a positive case in the groom village, and how we actually deal with it in not to mix everybody up, and the mitigation plans in that kind of area. But again, this information is all forthcoming, and it's very, very difficult to provide confirmations at this stage from our part.
Right, and I asked the questions only because my NOC are recommending, because they're struggling on getting information as well. And so they recommended and encouraged that we talk to the FEI as our point of contact. So sorry, Tim.
Yes, can I, there we go, I'm back on. And James, I must say, it's we've communicated a lot via email. It's good to finally put a face to a name. So it's good, and I look forward to meeting you in person in due course. Regarding the meals, in short, no, there has been, as far as I'm aware, there's been no move to change the food entitlements of the accreditations that you have referred to, the Ps, the taps and so on, as far as I'm aware. However, because this is a recurring problem games after games, we always, and it was one of the very first conversations I had with the organizing committee or the Japan Racing Association 7 years ago, we made sure that a food, essentially a cafe, is made available on venue, adjacent to the stables, back of house, and that will sell a range of food, and I'm glad to say actually also a little bit of beer and wine. So that facility will be available for all of those back of house Zone 2 accredited personnel that you have referred to. Regarding the grooms accommodation, that's a pretty technical question you asked there. If you send that, particularly technical elements of it, to me via email, I will be more than delighted to ask those questions of the Japan Racing Association, the venue owners, and get a little bit more clarity for you. And we'll also liaise in doing that with Mark Hart at the same time.
Thank you.
Thank you, James. And of course, our response to you, James, will also be provided to all of those that have attended this, this specific session, because it is of interest of everybody. So yeah, for the moment, there are no further questions. I am happy to tell you that we have 149 attendees for this specific session, which is good. So maybe I'll just wait a little bit. And if there are no further questions, and I'm getting confirmation that there are no further questions. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, dear colleagues, this is the end of this first session. We will take our break and we will join each other at 2 o'clock Central European Summer Time, where we will tackle jumping. So thank you, see you in a bit, and do reconnect. See you later. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues, dear friends, to the second session of today, which is going to be devoted to the jumping rules revision. And joining us from Germany is Stefan Ellenbruch, the chair of the jumping committee. And here with us in the studio, we have Marco Fuste, the director of jumping. But before we start this very important session, let's have a little video on jumping.
Thank you very much, Sabrina. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody watching, and welcome to session number 2, the jumping rules revision. So what can you expect from this section? Let's say we go on a little sightseeing trip. So let's say you want to go to New York, you want to see the whole city, and you have only 2 hours of time. So what can you do? The best thing is you take one of these hop-on, hop-off buses, which will take you from one attraction to the other. Do you know everything about New York later on? Most likely not. But at least you have a good first impression. Actually, this is what we are trying to do today. We try to take you through the most important rule change proposals. We stop here and there where we think it's worth stopping. Most likely, you might not see everything you want to see, but we hope that you will at least get a first impression. So I will try to take the driver's seat on the lower deck, while FEI jumping director Marco Fuste will be your travel guide on the sunny upper deck. The good thing is that the tour is for free. And maybe you can discuss later on if the travel guide gets a little tip. So enjoy the ride and follow the yellow umbrella. So a few words about the preparation of the full FEI jumping rules revision for 2022. The jumping committee has really received a lot of rule change requests. Actually, finally, we had 60 pages, 60 pages of rule change requests. Bearing in mind that the rule book has 129 rules, you can imagine how much work that was. All these rule changes, they were discussed. Some were accepted, so we agreed. Some were rejected. We were not happy with all the requests. And some will be even discussed again. So it's very important for us also to get feedback from your side based on this sports forum. That is the main purpose of the whole thing. So please be active and please join, and please let us know if you have concerns or if you agree, which would be even nicer for us. So the following are the main proposed modifications for the jumping rules. Only the main proposals that affect the sport and the organization of events have been included. As I said, it's extremely difficult to include everything. You will receive the full version on the 12th of July 2021. This will be then published, and that's part of the normal rule revision process. So what we are trying to do now is we do the presentation in 2 parts. Section A includes the proposals from the national federations and the MOU stakeholders. And section B are modifications proposed by the FEI jumping committee and by the FEI as such. So let's start with the rule proposals from the national federations and the MOU stakeholders. The first rule change request is about table A, or to be a little bit more precise, about the time allowed. As you know, most of the competitions, or at least a lot of competitions, are judged based on penalties and time. And if we talk about penalties, we have the jumping penalties and we have time penalties. So it's really important that we value the factor time in the right way. So the time allowed and the time of the round the athlete takes are really crucial elements to the sport, and time penalties should reflect how close an athlete is to meeting the time allowed. On exceeding the time allowed, athletes are penalized, and they should be penalized according to their performance. So the more you are out of that time allowed, the more you should be penalized. And then it should be simplified a little bit, because it would be good if penalties would be the same in all rounds, no matter whether it's the first round or the second round, in all phases, no matter whether it's the first phase or the second phase, or even in jump-offs, to make it a little bit easier. So there is a very clear proposal we have received, and the jumping committee supports this proposal. In all rounds, phases, and jump-offs, the penalty for exceeding the time allowed is 1 penalty for each or every 1 second commenced. So instead of giving 1 penalty for 4 seconds, as we do at the moment for rounds, in the future, it should be 1 penalty for every 1 second commenced, no matter whether it's a round, a phase, or a jump-off. The next rule proposal is about who is going to pay special costs in case of a late withdrawal or no-show of athletes. If you take a look at Jumping Rule Article 251.17 about the entries, there is something pretty clear, but maybe it's not really clear enough. So withdrawals after the date of the definite entries or no-shows will be liable to reimburse the OC for the financial loss incurred by the organizing committee, for example, stabling and hotel expenses, as a result of late withdrawal or no-show. But there is one very important question, especially if you have to fly in horses. So what happens if an athlete withdraws after the date of the definite entries in cases where horse flights are at the expense of the organizing committee? As you can imagine, this is really a huge financial impact for organizing committees. And the question is simple as that: who is paying the bill at the end when the athlete is not really showing up? So the proposal we have received, and what we are also supporting, is to make the athlete reliable for reimburse of the organizing committee for financial loss incurred by the organizing committee. This is not only something from the jumping rules. What we have in the jumping rules is based on General Regulations Article 116. So what we are doing at the moment is we have discussions with the FEI legal department to bring these two rule books in line, and then to go with the same rule. So the final wording is not really there. We are still working on it, but we will propose that for the future, the athletes have to pay for the flight costs if there is a late withdrawal or a no-show. The next proposal, or the next issue we have, is about officials. As you all know, it is important that we have experienced and well-trained officials at all FEI events, no matter if we talk about the lower level events or if we talk about high level events. Let me show you two issues, one from the top end and the other one concerning more or less the lower level events. So the first issue is about CSIO 5 stars. The experience level of ground jury members at CSIO 5 stars should be raised, as level 2 judges or even lower cannot be used in all positions. As you know, there is always a kind of rotation among the judges. Judges do a lot of stuff. They sit in the jury box. They are used at water jump judges. They are liaise judges. And for most of these positions, or at least a lot of these positions at a CSIO 5-star, level 2 judges simply can't be used. It's not allowed to use them, for example, to ring the bell in the competition. So, and the same applies to be the water jump judge. So we should have a look at that to make the situation easier for the judges at the CSIOs. The other thing is about the other end, the lower level events. As you know, we have introduced a new education system for jumping judges. It is now much easier to promote national judges to level 1. We have started a very successful online system we have used over the last year, where we have promoted lots of national judges to level 1 judges. So we get more and more the impression that it's really important that we use international judges at only exception to use national judges. So the point here is, for the very low level events, for the standalone, and that's important, we talk about the standalone CSI 1-star and CSI Young Horses 1-star and some other minor level events, it will be still possible to use national judges, but for the other events, it should not be possible. And finally, there is another question: is that really necessary that we use national judges outside their home country? That means, is it really necessary that an organizer flies in a national judge from another country? If he's doing that, he should fly in an international judge, because then he gets an educated person. So the proposal for that is, talking about the CSIO 5-star first, what we should have at CSIO 5 stars, we need to have a level 4 judge as ground jury president. That is what we have according to the existing rules already. And the foreign judge has to be minimum level 3. On top of that, we need a minimum of 3 additional judges to have the minimum number of the judges. And these 3 judges should be level 3 judges minimum. It doesn't hurt if you invite a level 4 judge in addition, but you should have at least 3 level 3 judges, because then you have the full flexibility and you can use these judges on all the spots, and it makes the situation much easier. Just to mention that we do not want to exclude level 2 judges. So if you want to have additional judges as part of the jury, it's not a problem at all to involve and to invite a level 2 judge. So it's still, the option is still there that level 2 judges get their experience even at these events. The next thing is, as I said already, about the national judges. So the proposal is that national judges may only officiate at CSI 1-star and CSI Young Horses 1-star. And as I said already, when these are standalone events. Practice has shown that if you have combined events and you are using national judges, then it's very complicated, because these judges already now can only judge these competitions. But then you might have not enough judges for the 3-star. So it's only possible in these lower level events. To make it a little bit easier for the organizers, as you know, the rules would come to effect on the 1st of January. This rule will come to effect on the 1st of July 2022, to give the organizers enough time, just in case they have already invited judges for their upcoming events earlier next year. And for the avoidance of doubt, one thing is very important to mention. We talk about high-level events and low-level events. For all FEI World Cup events, they are considered higher-level events, including the 1-star World Cups and the 2-star World Cups. And the last sentence here, national judges may not officiate outside their home country. As I said already, if you have to bring in somebody from another country, then bring an international judge in and not a national judge. The next question is, from what invitation section athletes must be invited to fill up open slots? It happens again and again. You have your show, athletes are signing in, athletes are filling the slots, and then it happens that somebody drops out and can be replaced. So the current rule is about filling the quota of compulsory invitations. And what the rule is saying is, if the quota of compulsory invitations is not filled by midnight on the 4th Sunday prior to the event, at the time of the invitation allocation, the remaining invitations will revert to section 3, which are the organizing committee invitations. So even if it's a compulsory invitation, it would go to the organizers' invitations. And if an entry is withdrawn after the allocation of invitations, the place will revert to section 3, organizing committee invitations. So the question came up, of course, from riders, and also the Riders Club asked that question, is that really a fair system? Because that would then, of course, give more options to the organizing committee instead of bringing in people from the compulsory invitations. We understand that and we agree to this. So we are in favor of introducing a system where the places would be filled up from section 1, which are the compulsory invitations. However, we are a little bit concerned about that because we have to see that we find a pragmatic way to do it, because as you can imagine, if one athlete drops out at show A and then somebody from the compulsory invitations could move up, so you take another athlete out of show B, then you start a kind of domino effect. So then the kind of rotation would start, which would make the thing somewhat difficult. And for that reason, we are at the moment in discussion with the FEI IT department that we find a way for a good practical implementation of the rule. The next thing is about CSI invitation rules, and especially the certificate of capability for CSI 5-star events. At the moment, we do not have something like that, but the question has been raised if a certificate of capability should be introduced as a requirement for athletes to compete in the main competitions of a CSI 5-star. Or in other words, should we introduce a kind of license for athletes to compete at top level events? In principle, we are in favor of doing so. So we should introduce a certificate of capability for CSI 5-star events. We have to see where we put that in the rules, because at the moment it is in Annex 5 invitation rules. The jumping committee is more in favor of putting that in Article 261, which is the Grand Prix competition rule. And if you want to take a look at the criteria, and please understand that I'm not trying to go through all these criteria to be fulfilled by riders, but you will find that in the document we have provided in section B when it comes to Article 261.4, and we will come back to that when we discuss section B later. Yeah, another ongoing discussion we have already since a few years, and that is the discussion about the maximum starters of athletes in competitions and also the splitting of competition. Or in other words, the issue is, what is the right number of athlete horses? What is the right system to split a competition? What amount of prize money must be distributed? And finally, what system has to be used to distribute the prize money? As you know, since a few years, we have already a system on how to split competitions, and then we changed it. It's still a little bit confusing. Lots of people are not happy with the system. And that's why we have received a proposal, and the jumping committee is in support of that proposal. It's more or less going back to the original system we had some years ago, and to keep it really simple and not go with percentages and at a certain number you have to add a certain percentage of prize money. We want to keep it simple. If more than 100 starters are declared, the organizing committee must split the competition into 2 groups and provide 200% of the original competition prize money, which is to be divided equally between the 2 groups. That rule is very clear. I know that organizing committees will not be too happy with that rule, but we have to take into consideration what we really want for the sport. And I know that we had special situations last year, but we had some cases where we had more than 250 horses in one competition. And we really have to ask ourselves, is that really good for the sport as such? And what are the competition conditions for riders if you compete in the competition with 250 horses? You can't guarantee that you have equal conditions there. So is there a level playing field? Most likely not. So that is the proposal, and we are happy to discuss that later. The next thing is about continental championships. The question is, what do we do with the fifth athlete? You know that we have the athlete number 5, which is more or less and must stay on the venue, and they do not have the chance to participate as individuals in the championship. So they are there and they have nothing to do. And is that really good? So there is the request to let the fifth athlete compete as an individual in the team and individual championships. The proposal here is, to have a new role for the additional athletes and horses. And the proposal is that the additional athlete, the fifth athlete, and his or her horse are allowed to take part in the team and individual competitions of the championships. The horses of team members and individuals not taking part in the championship competition may compete in the non-championship competitions. And I'm very happy to have Marco Fuster here with me, who in his former life was a chef d'équipe. So I'm pretty sure that he can add a few words on that proposal and the philosophy of this change. Marco, back to you.
And basically, we think that the fifth athlete, take a fifth athlete to a championship, take a horse and a rider for 1 week to have them just flat around the place, and the athletes sit all week long on the tribune. We believe this is no good. And I think that for team morale and for availability of the fifth athlete is also something that it is important. So we introduced this rule hoping that we can accomplish all those goals, and would be happy to discuss it later. Back to you, Stefan. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco. So moving on with the proposal for the rules for the under 25, the young riders and the juniors. The current rule the current rules allow to enter 5 athlete horse combinations per national federation, and then there is a pretty complicated system how they can be used and what result would count and how you calculate then final results for teams and so on and so on. But there is a general question coming up, and the question is, does the current rule provide equal opportunities to all nations, as not all nations can really enter 5 athlete horse combinations? Some federations are happy if they can just bring 3 combinations, or if they are lucky, they have 4. So the question is that system really fair? So we have received a proposal how to deal with that. It's a very, very, very long proposal. So once again, you will find that in the provided document. But before bothering you with all these details, once again, back to Marco, back to his former life as chef d'équipe, because he has a lot of experience with this, and most likely he can explain better in his own words than reading to you the whole rule proposal. Back to you, Marco.
Thanks, Stefan. Well, this is kind of simple. On the first team and individual competition, that normally you take the 3 best results out of 5, and then you continue with the team and with the first round of the team and second round of the team. But on the first day, basically, if you have 5 riders, you have the chance of getting the 3 best out of 5, which is good. But it's not a fair play for everybody. It's not for everybody exactly the same. You run a little bit of an advantage if you have 5 riders, because one of your good ones can have a bad day and you still can avoid a major hiccup in the championship. So that's basically the reason to even up a little bit the field and to give almost everybody the same advantage. Okay, you have only a team of 3 riders that will serve you for little, but almost everyone, every country can bring 4 riders to a championship at the present time, especially in the young categories where we're fielding now European championships with 20, 21, 22 teams in children and juniors. And this has been a norm for the past 2 or 3 years. So let's even out the field with this proposal. Back to you, Stefan.
Thank you, Marco. And that brings us then directly to section B, as announced already. So we go for the rules, the rule proposal submitted by the FEI and the FEI Jumping Committee. And once again, it won't be all the rule proposals, it's just a selection. The first proposal here is about the starting order in Grand Prix competitions. As you know, when you're going to shows at many events, there is the starting order for the Grand Prix, and usually it's established by a draw. And if you do a draw, according to the rules as we have it at the moment, you can do that in 3 groups, with the consequence that the higher ranked athletes always start last at the end of the Grand Prix. And if this is a jump-off competition, then they also start last in the jump-off. So we have received some comments or even complaints from athletes as they found it somewhat unfair, because you might have a super show, you won competitions, but still it doesn't give you any advantage at the show, because if you do it in groups according to the Longines ranking list, then of course the starting order is a little bit based on merits you have from the past, but not from the merits you have at the show. So the whole thing can be a little bit considered as a disadvantage, and therefore we come with the following rule proposal. The starting order for all Grand Prix competitions must be established according to one of the following 2 methods. The one method is the order of starting is determined by a separate draw. Separate draw in this case means you draw all the athletes in one group. Everybody has the same chance to be the first or has the same chance to be the last. If you want to make that based on the merits at the show, it's also possible. So if there is a special ranking for the best athletes or the best combination athlete horse at the event, the ranking in reverse order before the Grand Prix may be used as the order of starting. So you have a point system at the show, and then you let them start in reverse order of the points they have received. So the best athlete at the show will start last, which is not necessarily one of the higher ranked people in the Longines ranking list. The next proposal is about the Grand Prix, or better to say, the number of horses per athletes in the Grand Prix. Traditionally, there is only one Grand Prix at an event. This is the most important competition. Sometimes it's not called Grand Prix, then it's only the class with the highest prize money. And usually, or the philosophy was in the past that there should be only 1 horse per rider in this competition. We know that depending on where you are, it's very difficult because the number of riders is pretty low. And there were some exceptions to the rules, or there are still exceptions to the rules according to the rule book as we have it for the moment. However, we as the Jumping Committee, we feel that we should still allow that on lower level events, because that will encourage riders to start, that will promote the sport in regions, that will help them to get experience. That's very important. But we do not think that at CSI 4 stars and CSI 5 stars, so at the high level events, that we should allow riders to compete with 2 horses in the Grand Prix, because that is not really the philosophy there, and this would have also an impact on ranking points and things like that. So our proposal is we make exceptions for CSI 1 star, 2 stars, and even for CSI 3 stars. and no exceptions for CSI 4 stars and CSI 5 stars. There are some more things in the provided documents you might have to take a look at a little later. And once again, maybe Marco has to add a few things there, once again from his experience as chef in the past. Back to you, Marco.
I basically think that what you have said before is that in the lower level events, what we call promotional events, events that are in the part of the world where our sport is still in development, you think twice before not allowing 2 horses in the Grand Prix, especially because the numbers are not great. People may have more than 1 horse that can compete in the Grand Prix. And then for the organizers, it's also interesting to have a class of maybe more than 15, 14, 16 horses, even at the early stages of the CSI 3-star. It's also good to have sometimes the probable scapegoat that if you don't have enough entries for the Grand Prix, you don't have enough entries, you can let 2 riders go. But definitely for the higher echelon of our sport, CSI 4-star, CSI 5-star, it must be 1 horse per rider. Back to you, Stefan.
Thank you, Marco. We continue with something we have mentioned already a little earlier in section A, and that was the qualification and eligibility for the Grand Prix. And I told you already that in principle, we are in favor of introducing something like that. And of course, we had to find a way to put in the rules, what we expect from riders. So when it comes to the proposal, once again, I'm really happy to have Marco with me because it's much easier for him to explain to you a little bit what we will ask from the riders, just to give you a short overview, than to go through several slides and just to show you what we think we should do. So once again, back to you, Marco. Maybe you can add a few words about the eligibility for the Grand Prix.
Eligibility for the Grand Prix would be done to those riders that have obtained a level of competition in the previous level. Let's say for 3-star, you have to be able to do some courses of the Grand Prix of 2-star, Grand Prix of 4-star, Grand Prix of, then you take your level at the Grand Prix 3-star, and this subsequently up to 5-star. Also, even for those, you can be pre-qualified, then you will have also qualification within the shows. So this is gonna be really, I think this is oriented, the philosophy of the rule should be that we avoid at all levels bad pictures in television and scary moments in competition. Back to you, Stefan.
Thank you, Marco. I guess you have summarized that really very well, what the philosophy is behind these rule changes, because what we always try to do is we try to bring in new rules, but it should make sense to do so. And I guess Marco has explained that very well. Yeah, the next thing we have to discuss is what we do with the Nations Cup. And at least on my slide, the presentation is not moving on. I guess we have to click one more time. Yeah, here we are. So once again, a long list. And we are not going through all these things. We have revised the whole rule for the Nations Cup. I'm not talking about series here. That is a completely different ballgame. I'm talking about the rule about Nations Cup as it is in the jumping rules. So we have made adjustments to the format. We discussed obstacle, other technical requirements. We talked about the athletes' participation, who can participate, and so on and so on. The number of athletes and teams in the second round, all these things had to be clarified. Placing and classification, Nations Cup and other events. So we have put the whole article upside down. There is not really a revolution with this, but we have at least clarified a lot of things. Marco, if you could just point out a very few things which would really have an impact, on the philosophy of Nations Cup competitions.
Well, thank you. Basically, the rule change that it feels that for me, it's more important is before it was faults without time in each of the 2 rounds. Now it will be faults and time in both rounds. What will that affect you? That will affect you directly on the order of go in the 2nd round. I mean, before, now equal faults respected the order of the draw, meaning the order of the 1st round. Now it will go by the time of the best 3 athletes. That is a very significant change. And the most significant change would be with the final classification of the class. That would be the faults and time, the time of the 3 best riders, meaning that up to now, they were found equal with the same amount of faults. Now they were going to be separated by their times. For me, this is the most important things and changes on the Nations Cup rule. Back to you, Stefan.
Thank you, Marco. And I do agree, because that is really important that riders know what they do. And on one end, we say it's not against the time, and then it's against the time for other things. Now it is clear that for the future, it should be on penalties and time for both rules. On top of that, we have changed a few other things. Please have a look at the rule and you will see. I guess it's transparent enough. But if you have questions, of course, later on, you can ask. Next point is about the CSI invitation rule, section 123. I want to make one first remark here. The first thing is that further to the reintroduction of the CSI 2-star events in the online invitation system, Annex 5 is updated in alignment with the emergency board resolution for the reintroduction of the CSI 2-star in the invitation system as published on the website. So at the end of the day, it's already in what we want to do, just to make it clearer, and it has something to do with these emergency board resolutions. The other thing is, we want to do something for all medal winners. So in addition to the FEI Jumping Committee recommends that all medal winners of the most recent Olympic Games and World Championships should be invited to CSIs on a staggered timeline according to the medal they have won. So the proposal for that would be the following. The individual jumping medal winners of the most recent Olympic Games and the individual jumping medal winners of the most recent World Championship at the time of the reference ranking when applicable for the concerned event must receive an invitation to all CSIs according to the following timeframes. And then you will see that we have for the 3 different medal winners different time frames. So for the gold medal winner of the most recent Olympic Games, respectively of the most recent World Championship, must receive an invitation to all CSIs for the 4 years following the Olympic Games, respectively the World Championship at which the medal was won. For the silver medal winners, it would be for the 2 years following the Olympic Games and respectively the World Championship at which the medal was won. And finally, for the bronze medal winners, it would be for the year following Olympic Games, respectively World Championship, at which the medal was won. So that would give a lot of chances to all the medal winners, and it would be on a 3-step system. Finally, we try to bring the minimum eligibility requirements in line, because we took a look at the charts and we found out that there are sometimes very small differences between getting an MER for the Olympic Games, for the World, or for the Continental Championships. And we thought that it would be good to synchronize that. And on top of that, the MER criteria should also be updated in view of the new competition format for the Olympic Games. So based on that, we have adopted that all. Once again, there is a long list with lots of figures and numbers and requirements, what you have to fulfill. It's all in the provided document. Maybe finally, Marco can make some remarks on that again. Marco, can I ask you to do so?
Yes, thank you, Stefan. I'm happy to do so. I'm going to summarize a little bit what happened. We had continental rules for MERs, World Championship rules for MERs, and Olympic Games rules for MERs. As they always coincide in the time, it gets to be A, confusing, B, difficult to understand, because during from the 1st of January till that summer, that year championship, all that competition counts for the year's championship plus for the following year championship. So, and it differs, and it differs it differed in details, but in reality, it differed a lot. So what we have done, we have gotten all the MERs, and we unified all the MERs into one. I mean, we took the most important competition, which is the Olympic Games, and we made those rules for MERs be good for Continental Championship and World Championship, full well knowing that is parts of the world, and that would be also in the wording, that do not, their regional games do not qualify for the Olympic Games, and they have a lesser amount of difficulty during those games, and the MERs for those games will be adapted for the technical difficulty of those games. So at the moment when we had to have a little booklet to know what was counting for what, now everything will be the same, and the MER will be what it is once and for all. Thank you, Stefan. Back to you.
Thank you, Marco. And that brings me already at least more or less to the end of the presentation. So there is only one more slide left, more or less. So Marco and I, we really thank the members of the FEI Jumping Committee for their time and their effort, because it was really, it was a job we had to do. We had meetings more or less each and every week, minimum one. So that was quite a workload. At the same time, we would really like to thank the team of the FEI Jumping Department for their support, because we always needed a secretary, we always needed somebody for the minutes, we needed somebody to take that all together. So it was really good how the team of the Jumping Department worked. And finally, last but not least, and that is really the biggest thing, that goes out to Debbie Ripplinger. Deborah really did a wonderful job. We thank her for her contribution, for her dedication, and also for her expertise. I had several chats with her today just to make sure that I have a kind of phone a friend lifeline, you know, from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. So I know that Debbie is watching in her office, and that she's following word by word, and she will give me a feedback what I did wrong later on. So let's see, hopefully I will survive. No, but it was really good, and it's still good to have her. And I'm very happy that she will help us just in case we do not know an answer. And with this, I thank you for your attention. And of course, we are ready to take your questions. Back to you, Sabrina.
Thank you very much, Stefan. Thank you, Marco. I think this has been a very comprehensive session on the rules. Obviously, there's a lot to take in. As you mentioned before, we have 60 pages of rules, proposals that came in. And now we're going to open for some questions. And I see that we already have some gentlemen that are already lined up. We have Robert Ridland, who is going to be shortly promoted with his first question. He is currently being promoted. And Robert, when you are on, please remember to turn on your video and also take yourself off mute.
Am I there?
We can hear you.
Yes.
All right. Thanks, Sabrina. Thank you, Stefan. And thank you, Marco. Good morning to all. It's very early here in California, but I have a couple comments. The first comments, which are basically not why I called, but Marco, let's remember, let's not fix what ain't broken, as they say. My quick comments on the seating for Grand Prix. Most sports reward excellence in the long-term seasons. Marco, you had experience in the NFL, and you know how that works. And seeding Grand Prix with the better riders who have earned their spots are very good for the sport. They're very good for the organizers, and I think they make for better competitions. Again, those are earned spots. Another quick comment on the cumulative times for Nations Cups. I'm not really against that, but I'm also not really in favor of it. That's a little bit of a complication. Nations Cups, as we all know, even though we are emphasizing speed in our sport, justifiably so, the first and second rounds of a Nations Cup are not intended to be speed events. And those riders are going there jumping very tough courses with the intention of going clean. And there's an art form to being just under the time allowed. And then if all of a sudden after that's all done, you've got where you want to be, and then you add all the times together and you end up, I think that's a little bit of a luck of the draw, because I don't think riders go in there intending to be fast cleans. They're intending to be clean. But I'm mostly on this for the pre-qualification of medalists for Grand Prix. I think as a chef, again, Marco, I appeal to you. This will seriously weaken our ability to field the best teams in this sport, which, as we know, has been getting more and more homogenous over the past few years. We have to remember where our priorities are, and they are in the Nations Cups and they are in the championships. And for us to field a team for a championship, particularly the Continental Championships that we play in here, the Pan American Games, those are huge sacrifices for the riders to have to take their horses out of competition for more than a month when you're talking about logistics of preparing, getting horses there, back, and so forth. So the last thing we want to do is de-emphasize the importance of championships. I think from a sport perspective, and I'm saying in particular, but not necessarily only that, this will be devastating to the Pan American Games. The most recent Pan American Games in Toronto and Lima were fabulous events with top quality sport. It's going in the right direction. And I just want to put it out there. Let's not water down the sport by de-emphasizing the championships and taking away the incentive for riders to go there and teams to field the best teams in championships by taking away that incentive of being able to pre-qualify for Grand Prix. Thank you.
Thank you, Robert. I'm going to take that question. Thank you very much. Although normally we will not take questions that are not related from these articles, I can answer the question that you gave me for the pre-qualification of the Grand Prix. This is, as Stefan mentioned in the beginning of this presentation, there are rules that have been decided on. There are rules that have been approved or accepted, but rules that have not been accepted, and rules that are still, we're still in talks with and looking and talking with the different stakeholders regarding that rule. And this is exactly one of the rules that are still in conversation, that we are still in conversation with different stakeholders, and we'll have a decision by the 12th of July when those rules are published. But we take into consideration your experience as chef de keep, and we've been talking about this and the future of a lot of things in the past. So I know how you feel. I know how a lot of people in the business feel, and we will certainly take your opinion and different opinions into consideration.
If I may just say, Marco, again, on the 12th of July, obviously these proposals will be published. They are not approved, as you all know. The approval of any rules would only take place at the General Assembly. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else?
No. Okay, well, thank you for that, Robert. I hope that you are more or less satisfied with that response. As he mentioned, nothing is yet cooked here when it comes to the qualifiers. So that's that. So we can move on then to the next question, which we have from Gerald Kuhn. So Gerald, we're going to be promoting you right now. So if you bear with us, and then as Robert did, please make sure that you're not on mute and that your video is on as well.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, and we can see you too. Thank you.
Thanks, Sabrina. And hi, Stefan, and hi, Marco. Thank you for the hard work of the Jumping Committee and the Jumping Department for bringing upon these rule change proposals. Dear colleagues and friends, my name is Jerry Koo from Hong Kong. I have read the existing Annex 8 to the jumping rules and the proposed changes to the qualification procedures, which have grouped the Olympic Games, the World Championships, and the Continental Championships into the same category. While I applaud the harmonization of the qualification procedures to these high-level championships, there are other continental championships outside of Europe that are not considered a regional championship, but are conducted below the level of the Olympic Games. For example, the FEI Asian Championships for jumping that was held in Thailand in 2019 was competing at a level of meter 40 for teams and meter 50 for individuals. Although there is every intention to bring up the level of the Asian Championships on par with the European Championships, and hopefully one day could become an Olympic qualifier, this will not happen overnight and is expected to take some years to realize. Hence, I think the current and the proposed qualification requirements might not be the best criteria for the Continental Championships running outside of Europe for two reasons. Firstly, the qualifying criteria themselves would way surpass the actual level of the Continental Championships. And secondly, the OC may have a hard time getting enough qualified athletes to participate in their Continental Championships, and this would have a very detrimental effect to the development of the sport in these continents. Given these reasons, I humbly request the FEI to take another look at the proposed changes and to come up with rules that are applicable to both Europe and beyond, while following the same rationale in qualifying athletes and horses to these high-level championships. Thank you. Back to you, Stefan.
So
Yeah.
would you like? Yeah, thank you. Go ahead, Stefan.
Thank you, Jerry. Good to see you, first of all. Thank you for your kind words. I will pass that to the jumping committee. We are aware, and that's why I thank you again for your comment. We are aware about this issue. We had already a first short discussion with the chairman of your group, which is the FEI Vice President Jack Wang. So we definitely will take another look at that, and we will see if that really works worldwide or what we have to maybe modify there. And as Sabrina said earlier, this is all work in progress. That is the whole purpose of this exercise, that we discuss this thing, and that's why we are really so happy that we get that feedback and that you let us know immediately what your opinion is. That is very useful, and we will take that on board. Thank you, Jerry, again.
Thank you for that, Stefan. So now we will, I'm asking Maria Gretzer. Should you have a question, Maria? We're going to promote you now. Remember to unmute and to put your video on. Okay, we're having a little difficulty here, maybe. Okay, it's in progress, so patience is a virtue. Should be up shortly. Okay, it seems like we lost the promotion for Maria Gretzer. Perhaps we can take Maria a little bit later. I believe that we had, after Maria, we have George Demaris. Can we promote George? Okay, George, apparently you lowered your hand. Your question may have been answered already. So George, apparently you've informed us that you're not interested in asking a question today. Okay, so we don't appear to have any further questions for the moment, but I don't want to rush anybody. So I'm just going to wait a little bit more because maybe Maria can join us again.
Maria is in.
Okay, it appears that Maria will be. Oh, here we are. Okay, Maria, your mic is not on. So you need to turn your mic on. We can see you though, which is already a good start. Maybe say something. Maria, try one more time, please. Okay, it would appear that you would need to configure your microphone. So this sounds technically challenging. So what we're going to do right now, Maria, is we're going to take you off and then we're going to bring you back in, and hopefully the third time will work. So thank you everybody for being patient with us. It'll be so much easier next year when we're all at IMD again. Okay. Sorry, Maria. Listen, Maria, if you don't mind sending us your question to FEI headquarters, and we'll make sure that we do answer it. So if there are no further questions, a huge thank you to you, Stefan, in Germany. Wish you could have been here with us today. Marco as well. I want to thank all the participants. Before I leave, I'm just going to run through, not give you the whole sessions, what we discussed today, but just maybe a quick overview of some of the things, some of the takeaways that we had today. So obviously in our first session, Olympic Games and Paralympic Games, we had a general update on the venue preparation and the logistics. Things are moving forward. We do know that the key dates, we are 60 days when horse movement is restricted. You all were it was brought to your attention as well that you really need to look at this peat and bloodstock memo. It has very important information for all of us. The playbook rules when it comes to the COVID-19 countermeasures will apply in all circumstances. We also received today very important reminders on the entry deadlines, the pre-competition changes, substitutions. We also were reminded very importantly of the climate mitigation measures for equine and human athletes. And the key is to start preparing now if you haven't done it already. We have on our hub, as you all know, the videos for Beat the Heat on FEI campus. Please, please, please watch them, rewatch them, and share them. There will be extensive testing, as always, at FEI events at the Olympic Games, so beware. What else? On the FEI Clean Sport Hub, we have the WADA courses, which is very important. And one thing that was made which was highlighted by Catherine Bollon, was the fact that there will be restrictions on the importation of medication for person in Japan. So please make sure that you double check. And if you have any questions, please reach out to the FEI staff. So we received one more time. It was confirmed during the question and opening session that there will be no public transportation normally, so as not to mix with the local population. And we do understand the importance of this, and we know that you need to work with your NOCs, and we still need to push to get more information out to you. We are waiting for James Hood to provide us a detailed question regarding the COVID mitigations answers that he required for grooms, and we'll get back to it and make sure that all of you here on these sessions also receive that information. Then in jumping, as was explained to you earlier today, there have been so many different proposals put forward. The jumping committee looked at many. I looked at all of them actually, and today only presented the major ones that they were thinking about going forward with. There are some still that are kind of in the mix, and they still need further discussions with the stakeholders, and we will be, for instance, as we talked before about the pre-qualification for the Grand Prix. We took note of that, and that for sure is not a done deal yet. We need more information and more consultation. So there were a number of discussions that were talked about today. We had the time penalties for Table A. We also talked about the CSI invitation rules. There was explanation on the proposed changes to the certificate of capability for the CSI 5 stars. We also discussed rules for the 25 young writers and juniors team classification. We also discussed the order of the Grand Prix competitions. Then we also had the whole philosophy of the Nations Cup was also brought forward and highlighted by Marco. As I mentioned before, the certificates of capability for the Grand Prix, starting orders, and much, much more. And we did also take note of the qualification for harmonizing the MERs when it comes to the qualification procedure for the Olympic Games, World Championships, Continental Games, that we still need to look at that because we need to look at the different regional concerns around the world. So that's it in a nutshell. Maybe I was a bit quick. I'm not surprised if I was. But thank you for being with us here today. It's been a real pleasure. Tomorrow, we have another exciting day. We will be starting our session at 12 o'clock Central European time with an important session on grooms integration. Here, we really need your input here as well. Then we will follow, the next session will be the vaulting rules revision, and then at the end, we will do the driving rules revision. Thank you for your participation. We look forward to having you tomorrow. Stay safe and see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.